host, Sean Lynn, in the pub for a Dram with Friends, where we talk about faith, family, food, and fun. Pull up a chair and I'll pour you a drink. Episode 31. We welcome Deacon and Captain David Bourrier to the pub. A man with many titles, but a heart for God. Sit back as I pour us a dram. Welcome to another episode of A Dram with Friends. We are extremely blessed today to have a new friend join us in the pub, Deacon David from Ottawa, also known as Captain David. So I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience. Welcome to the pub.
Thank you, Sean. Hello, everybody. My name is Deacon David Bourrier. I'm my other title, Captain. I'm an Air Force captain with the Royal Canadian Air Force. My occupation is aerospace control officer, so we do the fighter coordination control as well as air traffic control, and even going down into the States with NORAD and doing what we call space and missile warning.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a really good 20 years so far, and I'm hoping for another 10 more at least. So
There you go. Well, my scouting report said that you were a Lagavulin man, so it gave me an opportunity to go and grab a Lagavulin
yeah,
and open it. So I'm gonna have a little dram of that.
so there we go.
Oh, there you go. So
Yeah.
the scouting report was right.
Oh yes, it's. I never did enjoy Scotch until my friend introduced me to Lagavulin, and at that point I was hooked, and I've been a devotee for a while now, over
Well, and
20 years.
the you were with Bishop Scott McCaig at St. Joseph's Oratory last weekend, and I had opened up Ardbeg Black for the Feast of St. Joseph, and he came across that he loves Ardbeg, so I'll have to make sure I save him a dram for when he rides out west here. So
Yeah, he's a big Scotchman, I have to say. It's always an enjoyable evening with him.
there you go. So you talked a bit about your career and who you alluded in an email that there's many other titles that you go by, and but tell our audience who you are.
Oh.
Who is Deacon David Bourrier? Is it Bourrier?
Yeah, I grew up in a family that was my dad's side's French and my mom's side's English, so we're Bourrier in English and Bourrier en français. But
Okay,
it's it's whatever people pronounce it. As long as I can get through that they're trying to say my name, I answer to it.
there you go.
Yeah, a little bit of Paul's all things to all people. I'm a little bit all names to anybody who's calling. But yeah, the titles. I mean, everybody likes to have a special title, and I guess I'm fortunate in that I have some of the best ones going. I mean, certainly child of God, obviously the best, baptized disciple of Christ. Um, but apart from my love of God, just dad, husband. Those are the most cherished ones that I have. I mean, I felt a real vocation to fatherhood, real physical fatherhood, long before I felt the call, the vocation to the diaconate. And so It was a short period in my life where I was discerning a vocation to the priesthood, but I was so very sure of my vocation to parenthood, fatherhood, that it was short lived, and never looked back. Stunned when I got the call to the diaconate. That was a bit of a surprise, but it's led me places that I never thought I'd go either. Um, for example, to a certain pub.
There you go. Well, and to the St. Joseph's Oratory on the Feast of St. Joseph in the year of St. Joseph.
Yeah, he's Saint Joseph has been a steadfast companion for well over a decade, so he's
Oh, good. Well,
he's kept me sane.
I've written articles in the past because being in the police service, we have the rank structure as well, and I don't know. I meant to do some research and I failed. Uh, what's the top rank within the Canadian Air Force?
So we have we have a split within our in our Air Force. We have non-commissioned members and commissioned officers, and so I'm on the officer side, and our top would be a full general, and we only get one in the Canadian Forces, and because the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy are all part of the same Canadian Armed Forces, it doesn't necessarily rotate between the three elements, but it's it varies from CDS to CDS, our Chief of Defense Staff, who's a general, and there are four different levels of general, and then we've got colonels and lieutenant colonels and majors and captains and lieutenants and second lieutenants, and
So
those are
there,
mirrored in the Army, but then the Navy has their own criteria, so you start getting commodores and admirals and the like. So
and those are all positions that take time and are usually recognized. But in my article, for us, the chief is the highest and the deputy chief. And I said, who could name the deputy chiefs from 10 years ago, right?
yeah, true.
And those are positions that are almost at the top pinnacle of your career, yet on your deathbed, the one you like the most, like you were saying, husband, father, grandfather, those are the ones that you hope people remember you by. So,
Certainly. The well, even with the military, in a sense, is almost a vocation in itself. A good deal of the people who join the military join out of a sense of altruism. They believe in what Canada stands for, or the best of Canada, and they want to protect it, defend it, and uphold those rights and help spread peace, really, and stability throughout the world. And but at the end of the day, it's still something that you'll retire from, and you never retire from being a husband or a father. And thank goodness you don't really retire from being a deacon either. So I've sort of set out my post retirement workload already.
well, and what's interesting is a lot of people, especially men, identify with titles and achievements and I love how you said a vocation because I very much feel my role as a police officer is a vocation that God has given me to go and do what I can to make the world a better place. But I was part of a program called Identity Based Wraparound Intervention, and it's amazing how many different identities that we do carry around. Like I joked around that I was the Christian Catholic Caucasian cop who cooks and coaches. So, and there, and just I understanding who we are. I think you said it best, as a child of God, and that's where we have to use that as our core base and what God's calling us uh, to bring out to the world. And wearing the uniform, you're not going to go like my shirt, warning, I'm going to start talking about Jesus at any time, right? Because that's not your role when you have your uniform on. But that doesn't mean people shouldn't know that who you are underneath that uniform, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so within the military, at least in the NCR, the National Capital Region, we have a lot of civil service workers that work within the department as well. And so we have those who are in uniform, like myself, and then the civilian component as well. And in an effort to really make us feel like one team, on Fridays we have what we call Civvy Friday. So we dress out of uniform, is what we're allowed to do, and come in as civilians. So at that point, I get the opportunity to put on my other uniform, and I come in my clericals, and I do every Friday that I'm in work, although that's been close to a year gone by at this point. But I do present in my other uniform to the people that I work with, because you can't take the deacon out of me. At one point, I might be a captain retired, but I'll always be deacon, and it's it's allowed the people at work a safe haven for important questions, or if they're having difficulties or what have you, that they're not comfortable going with their chain of command to. I'm always available for them. So it's been a real blessing.
No, that's good to hear. For us, it's if we're not working the street, we can do dress up during stampede time. That's the extent of our casual Fridays if we're a uniform member. So yeah, is that me or you? Yeah, it's the busy pub today.
Yeah.
My wife was trying to get my attention earlier, and the phone's ringing, but that happens in everybody's pub, I'm sure. So
Well, that's the signs of life, you know.
that's right.
But
I'm
it's
not
good.
sure who's trying to get a hold of me, but we'll deal with it after we have our dram,
Sounds
because
like a plan.
nothing's quite that important. Well, if it was one of the kids, I might have checked and double checked and had Michelle check, because that's what we do as dads, right?
Yep.
That's we
Yeah, we try to make sure that they're ready for the world, make sure that they've got everything they can, and we give them sometimes a little bit more leash than they would like, so that
Yep.
they can get into some uncomfortable situations, but we're close enough to help out if if things go
A-
wrong.
And that's for young people, that's so important to have that feeling that they have that fallback, that dad is there to help. I'm sure you've gotten the phone call, Dad, help me figure this out. My car's not doing this, or this isn't working at work, or
Yeah, well, my oldest is in Winnipeg. He lives on his own, and he's 27. So he calls every so often. And there are times where he needs his dad's advice, or, again, he lives alone right now. So it's a little lonely not being allowed to visit, and the various circumstances as they've gone through their isolations and so on and so forth. But he's struggled at times. So yeah, it's always reaching back to dad, and that's a comforting feeling to know that what you've given them is enough, that they're willing to come back and keep asking for advice.
well, and that's where trying to give advice to people, that's one of the things especially working with young people as much as I do, is allow your kids to grow up, and you have to give them the ability to make decisions and live with the consequences. You can be there to pick them up, but you're not there to interfere with them growing, right? Because they need to learn to take the bus, learn to do stuff on their own in order to grow as a person.
Yeah, and sometimes they need a little bit of a push for that, and especially if they're feeling a little timid or what have you. Sometimes it's a firm no, you're going to do it, which
Yep.
not always a comfortable feeling for them, but success or failure in the first ones, the goal eventually is that we're consistent successes, and you build them up. And provided you've built them up enough and well enough, and I mean, we're talking about buses and so on and so forth, but it's knowing what a good relationship looks like, knowing what a potential husband or wife looks like, knowing how to love God and how to talk to God, praying, either together as a family or alone. And I've, I've been pretty lucky. I've been surprised. You grade yourself, you might think yourself, maybe you made it a D. Sometimes you get the strangers that come up and go, "Your kids are so wonderful." And you're like, "Really? Like you didn't see
Are you
them
talking about my
15
kids?
minutes ago at home?"
I'll never forget. Where dads especially have expectations of their children, and I remember one time my friends reminding me just how good my kids were. I was complaining about my son who had a scholarship to a university, was top athlete in the city, and waiting for marriage. But I he was I forget what it was that he wasn't doing that I thought he should be doing, and they just reminded me, yeah, don't complain.
Yeah,
So it's and part of that is we want the best for our children, and when you see the potential that is there, dads want to help push them to achieve that, and that's where we have to have that balancing act, right? Of
yeah. It's a balancing act, and in some cases it's a constant negotiation.
yep.
Can I have the car? Well, that depends. If you're willing to pick up your sister after work, yeah, you can have the vehicle, but you got to be home afterwards. And
Oh yes.
those are just the little things.
Yep.
But
Well, and then there's car accidents
you
and all
know,
that other fun stuff to work through.
we've dodged those so far, thank God. But
Well, yeah, I just got a phone call from a family member that their son had his first fender bender, and
mm,
yeah, we've gone through a few of those with our kids, and I did it to my dad. So it,
yeah,
yeah, those are, and at the end of the day, I was telling the family member, look, just let him know that he's loved, and we'll get through this.
yeah,
And that's what I try to do with my kids. It may not always come out that way, but
yeah. We occasionally I'll tease the kids like, "Don't break the car; it's hard to fix."
yep.
But you get some scratches. Well, that grows back.
My wife and I, our last vehicle that we bought it with hail damage just so that we didn't have to worry about getting the first scratch in it.
Yeah, there
So,
was that bad one. What was it? Last year? The year before?
we've had a number of them out here in Alberta for
Yeah.
it depends where you are in Alberta. and when it hits. So yeah, we've had a number of them. So
Yeah, I grew up in Winnipeg, so we had some good ones. I was driving on the perimeter highway around Winnipeg, and we had hail. I actually had my hand up in front of my eyes a bit, at a distance in case something decided to come through the windshield. It was,
oh wow,
yeah, it was getting pretty scary. But at that point, what do you do? It's not like you're gonna get outside.
Jesus, I trust in you.
Yeah, very much. But
Yeah, and that's where people have to realize that there is one option, and that's just to trust in God, and you will get through this and pick up the pieces. There was a song that the title said it all for me. The saints are the sinners that fall down and get back up again, and no matter what happens, we'll get back up and
yeah,
keep going.
yeah,
And I'm sure that's a military thing that, as I told the kids I was talking to the legal studies earlier this week, that I don't get paid to lose. So,
yeah. It's we at times it's hard. Life gets difficult. The When I was working in California with the American Air Force, um, the enlisted guys down there uh, often would say when things were getting really bad, silliness at work or just long shifts because of something going on, they'd be embrace the suck. It's like
okay.
it's a new one. I'll grant them that, but it helped them get through. It's sometimes life sucks,
Yep.
and it's not about finding a quick way out. It's about staying strong and weathering whatever it is that's going on. And yeah, it was a great time. I loved my time working with the American Air Force. They very professional group. Really enjoyed it. My wife loved it too. I mean, you're living in California, so
Yeah, there wouldn't be too many complaints, I don't think, on
no, no. But Catholic school down there was fantastic. The parish was amazing. We were in Roseville, California, so I'm gonna do my shout out to St. Rose of Lima and the school that's attached. It was a fantastic community, and we're so used to seeing in the public eye how Christianity is sort of dying a slow or a fast death, depending on where you're going. But to be in a parish that's just continually growing was was an eye opener and amazing, just amazing.
well, and that's what our hope is by us visiting in the pub, building relationships here in Canada, that we can encourage men across North America or wherever you're watching that you need to be active in your faith and out there participating in it in order for it to grow, and invite a friend. That's uh,
Yeah,
because that's the only way we're gonna curb the tide of all the negative stuff that we hear in the world today, is for good men to stand up. Like Sir Edmund Burke is said, evil triumphs if good men do nothing, right? And
yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, seeing a mother walk in with her kids because dad wants to stay home and watch the game or doesn't feel a need to go to church, um, you know, that's a hard thing. Like the children are learning from the father as much as they're learning from the mother. They're learning that moms go to church and dads get to stay home. And if it's not important enough for their dad to do, then why should it be important for anybody else? And I had listened. I'd listened to an interview at one point, and there was a statistic that basically said that when a man leads or converts or comes into the church, he generally speaking brings the entire family with him. Whereas if a woman converts, she has a chance of bringing some of the kids, a chance of maybe getting her husband involved, but there's a reality there that men draw people to them, especially in their families. If you're not leading them into the church, you're leading them out of it. And if what you want is your kids to lead a good, wholesome life that's filled with virtue and love and, you know, being a good, solid citizen, promoting peace, promoting love, helping the poor, having a good life that makes them sleep at night, not worry about things. Where do you find that except in Christ? Where do you find it outside the church? I mean, I know there are people who can sleep well, but I've lived both lives. And in the church, the best place in the world.
I I would agree with you. So we talk about faith, family, food, and fun. We've covered the first two fairly good. Is there something that's a specialty for you to cook for the family, or
Oh, yes. So, in my family, the men all cook. So, my grandfather worked for the Grey Nuns in Winnipeg, in St. Boniface, at Taché Nursing Center. He was the head dietitian for a 1,000-bed nursing home. So he made, yeah, and it really was the core of that community because virtually everybody in the community had a relative or a friend at Taché. And so they would come and visit. And so there were always people there. And they would eat in the cafeteria there with their family or go up to their rooms and visit them. So it was a real nexus for the community. And again, all grounded in the good works of the church. And I grew up seeing that. So, I mean, it was an amazing thing. My grandfather cooked. My father owned a restaurant until I was about 5, and then he catered as well. And so, big family, big food. And yeah, my brothers and I, we all cook. Um, I love cooking Chinese food, like stir fries, Indian. Um,
oh wow,
yeah, I can do roasts and eggs and and pork chops and barbecue. I've only got a charcoal barbecue these days, but that's
well, if you're down in the States, yeah, that is a barbecue. That other thing's a grill. If you,
yeah.
but
Well, I can do both. I've got
there
both.
you go.
So
Well, you and I would get along just fine then. Our, I I tell people when my extended family gets together, it's kind of like a cooking competition between my brother and my sister and my dad and my
yeah,
mom. So yeah, it's we all love to cook, and it's something that brings people together, and that's one of the reasons we started barbecue outreach, was just to bring people together, and I think we're going to need a lot of that after this COVID lifts, just to re-engage people. And
yeah. Well, I mean, nothing says that you're accepting a person more than sharing your food with them. It's you share your table, you're sharing your life, and people appreciate that.
so one of the segments I have is, a lot of the young men are struggling today, and even what is a man. So what advice do you give your 18-year-old self?
Follow God. I mean, read the Word, listen, listen to the little voice. You have to pray. You have to give yourself quiet time. I mean, we don't get enough quiet time these days, but being alone. And a real man has to be able to look at himself in the mirror. And that means having a properly formed conscience, realizing the things that you've done wrong are wrong objectively, and you owe apologies at the very least. Certainly to God and to the person or people you've offended, but always remembering that you're affecting everybody by everything you do anyways. And so it's don't do anything rashly. No one.
Which is hard to do as an 18-year-old, but
Exactly. Like how, and we have a tendency to see things a lot more black and white and a lot more desperate. You know, it's always something that has to be done right away. Everything needs to be done right away. So we never take the time to pray and to ask God what it is that He's calling us to in bigger decisions. Um, yeah, so patience and introspection, especially in a world that values the outgoing person. The outgoing person sometimes has difficulty being quiet and alone and listening for that inner voice of God that's leading you into holiness. And if we don't stop and listen to that small voice, we risk, even with great intentions, running off the path in the wrong direction. And I mean, spoken from experience here. So,
there you go. One more segment is Jeff Cavins talks about riding with your posse. So, who are your go-to saints? Who are the saints that you walk with every day?
oh my goodness. St. Joseph, obviously our Blessed Mother. Um, St. Martin of Tours, he's our patron saint for the military ordinariate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he was an amazing person. Um, Geez, I've got such a list. It's hard to narrow down just a few, but ones that have always been with me: Saint Joseph, the Blessed Mother, um, Francis of Assisi, Anselm. I share my birthday's on his feast day, so
Who
it's
who is that?
Saint Anselm.
Oh, okay.
So he was Archbishop of Canterbury way back when, and he described sort of theology as sort of faith-seeking understanding, and it's besides them, we've got our newer saints as well, and Joan of Arc is a recent one, but she's our second patroness of our ordinariate. But again, a soldier who is devoted to God.
And that's what yeah, just finding those people in heaven that are willing to walk with us every day and getting to know them and because we believe in life everlasting in heaven, so they're alive and well and ready to help. So,
Yeah,
okay, I got to ask a question because you said something about NORAD and tracking
sure.
there early. Have you ever been part of the Santa Tracker team?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when we were in California, um, Christmas Eve at the base that I was at, so Beale Air Force Base is where it was, and I was part of 7th Space Warning Squadron. We were tied into NORAD, and on Christmas Eve, we would bring tours through, but it was for the kids predominantly, although mom and dad could come as well. It was for the kids. We gave priority to the kids who had parents deployed over Christmas, and we would bring them in. We would help them do a craft. We'd bring them into our operations room where we could show them where Santa was on the maps because we had that up for them. And because we also had all of the secure phones, we were able to call Santa.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, amazing to watch kids' eyes light up when we managed to get Santa on the phone. Say, how are things, Santa? It's like, oh, I'm just passing over Tunisia right now, and hang on a second, is Billy there? I think Billy's in the room too, isn't he? And how about Beth? And their eyes would get all big, and it's like, Billy, you're hoping for a bicycle this Christmas, aren't you? It's like, and the jaw would drop open. It's like,
That's awesome.
oh yes, and it's if we mention, just make sure you listen to mom and dad and go to bed when mom and dad tell you to. I don't want to have to miss out and dropping your presents off because I'm looking really forward to giving them. And you say those words, you hear those words, the kids are ready to go to bed right away.
There you go.
2 o'clock in the
Well,
afternoon.
I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to our country. And I don't know if you're aware that the origin of whiskey is a Gaelic term called Ishkabaha, which means water of life. And my prayer is that you continue to lead many souls to the true water of life. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and a joy.
All right. Now, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of A Dram with Friends. Like and subscribe. Go to all podcast platforms to look for it on podcast, or go to godsquad.ca to support our mission.